Hello everyone. Today's video is about using salt water to help address the symptoms of POTS, also known as postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Just before jumping into the video, if you don't mind taking a quick moment to please like, share, subscribe, and or post a quick comment on the video, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. And as per usual, nothing I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. And if you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. So I posted another video a little while ago, maybe a few weeks ago, and it was entitled something like a successful treatment of a case of POTS. I did this little case series where I posted videos about successful treatment of a few different conditions that kind of fall under the complex chronic illness umbrella: mold toxicity, chronic infections, POTS, MCAS, SIBO, heavy metals. I think that might have been the full series. And somebody posted a comment or slash question on on the POTS video saying, "Can you please detail or outline your saltwater protocol that I had referenced in that POTS treatment video?" So here is the reply to that question, or that question slash comment. Again, can't give any medical advice over social media, so this is just kind of for, well, as anything I say, for informational purposes only. I'll just kind of use a hypothetical example here, because around exact dosing as far as salt goes, I know it sounds kind of silly and counterintuitive to say, oh, dosing and salt, like it's just a food. But at the end of the day, we do have to be cautious with salt. If a person's consuming too much sodium, especially if they don't have low blood pressure in the first place, which would be strange to see that if a person had POTS and didn't have a tendency towards low blood pressure. But too much salt can potentially raise blood pressure in some folks, not everybody, but in some folks. Too much salt over the course of time can also predispose a person to developing kidney stones, so it's not something that's without some potential risk. I mean, folks who are suffering with the symptoms of POTS, the cost-benefit ratio of like, hey, if this salt really helps me, if I'm running the risk, it's not a huge risk, but some risk of kidney stone development, a lot of folks will take that gamble and use the salt water. Generally, I mean, salt's pretty safe otherwise, but when I recommend that patients start on a salt water protocol, as I'm about to outline, I do always recommend that they build up the amount of the salt up slowly, because as we start to, especially if a person has POTS, orthostatic intolerance, things like that, anything where they have a lower than optimal blood volume potentially, then as they start to improve their blood volume by consuming more salt, in the water medium as a rule, then they're going to have better perfusion to their tissues. So their tissues, their cells are going to be better hydrated. There's better oxygen delivery, better nutrient delivery, and that's wonderful. It also means that when the cells are more hydrated, they're going to be able to detoxify more effectively, because they're going to be able to produce more lymph and move things through the lymph more easily as well. So, at first glance, it's like, hey, this is all just really good stuff. We want better cellular perfusion. We want better lymphatic flow out of the cells. So how could we go wrong? Well, like many things in the functional medicine realm, naturopathic medicine realm, whatever you want to call it, as we start working towards enhancing the health of the body, if we do things too aggressively, or if we do things not in a very well balanced way, then a person can sometimes start to feel really crummy, even though we're working on things that are going to improve their health. So case in point, a person starts on glutathione, they start on a liver detox support protocol too quickly, they start on mitochondrial support too quickly. These things can sometimes cause people to feel worse before they feel better. And in a similar vein, if we start perfusing the tissues, getting the lymph moving better, we can cause patients to feel worse before they feel better. Some of the worst flare-ups that I've seen actually have been in folks who have built up their saltwater protocol too quickly. And this isn't in folks who are, reacting to everything under the sun in the first place. Sometimes they've tolerated everything just fine, and then they're just flummoxed that, oh my gosh, like I can't seem to build up this saltwater protocol. It's really, beating me up kind of thing along the way. So it is something we have to be cautious with. So anyways, as per usual, talk to your healthcare provider about, health advice that you might need. So generally with the saltwater protocol, the one really important principle that I like to explain to my patients is that we ideally want to try to disperse whatever salt's being consumed as evenly as possible over the span of the day. And so the sort of framework that I ask patients to think of is, if let's say a person's consuming, say, 3 liters of water per day. A lot of folks with a POTS diagnosis will have just figured out over time that they need to drink a heck of a lot of water. Some of them need 3 liters, 4 liters, which I think 4 liters is a gallon for the Americans listening. I can't remember the exact conversion. I think that's what it is. And so some need to drink a lot of water. So let's say a hypothetical case, a person's consuming 3 liters of water, give or take, through the day. So if say the goal for a given patient was to build up to consuming a full teaspoon of salt per day, let's say, well then what I would typically do is ask them to start with around a quarter of a teaspoon of salt and kind of think about it conceptually like this. And then we talk about the exact logistics moving forward. But conceptually, just thinking about it as, okay, you've got this huge container on your kitchen counter. It's got 3 liters of water in it. That's all the water you're going to drink for the day. You put a quarter of a teaspoon of salt in that 3-liter vessel, you stir it up really well, and then that's the water that you drink throughout the day. So that quarter teaspoon of salt has been distributed evenly throughout all the water that they're going to drink through the day. And then after a certain period of time, I usually say somewhere between 3 to 7 days, they're going to increase the amount of salt. And sometimes we'll go up by quarter teaspoon increments. Sometimes we'll go up by 1/8 teaspoon increments. It depends on how sensitive they are. But so after, say, 3 to 7 days, patients tolerating the quarter teaspoon amount of salt well. So now in their big 3-liter container, now instead of putting a quarter teaspoon of salt, they're going to say put half a teaspoon of salt in there, stir it up really well, and then drink that water throughout the course of the day. And so we're kind of gradually increasing the amount of salt, but the key thing is distributing it through the day. Some patients, will say, before I get into my explanation, I'll say, oh, can I just take like a full teaspoon of salt first thing in the morning, just get it over and done with? And the answers are resounding, you can do whatever you want, but generally, no, that will not work as well, because we're basically using the salt as a lure to draw in more fluid into the patient's system. And so we need to have that salt distributed through the day. A similar question would be, oh, can I just salt the heck out of my food? It's like, you could, but it's still not going to work as well. We need it to have that be drawing that fluid into the person's system. So having that even distribution throughout the day is really, really important. The one sort of exception, or maybe not exception, but the one way that we sometimes need to try to get around the salt water, because as we're getting into these higher and higher amounts of salt water, and a common target will be anywhere from say a gram of sodium, maybe up to 3 grams of sodium, which can be, or sorry, not a gram, anywhere from teaspoon of salt is about 2.3, I think, grams of sodium, if memory serves. So let's see here, anywhere from say 1.5 to maybe 5 grams, sometimes higher amounts of sodium, which very rare that a person would need to go that high. But the bottom line is that as folks are consuming more and more salt in their water, the water gets really, really salty. And some people have, pre-existing nausea. Some people have, just really sensitive taste buds for various reasons. Sometimes folks just can't tolerate a salt water that's that salty. And so there are, one alternative option is to, it's a bit of a pain in the neck, but is to basically, figure out how much salt is, supposed to be consumed with each glass of water, and then just put that amount of salt in a capsule, and then say, okay, I'm going to drink this glass of water, and I'm going to take my salt capsule ahead of time, and that's all going to mingle in the stomach. So the salt technically doesn't need to be dissolved in the water. It could be taken like in a salt capsule, or you can buy salt tablets. Generally, they, in my experience, usually have about 1 gram of salt per tablet, so they'd have to be broken up into smaller bits. But it's not mandatory to have the salt in water form, but it should be mixed with the water. Hopefully that's been conveyed by my previous words that I just said. So let's see here. Was there something else I wanted to mention? Might have been something else, but anyways, that's the lion's share of it. So basically gradually building up the salt, figuring out the therapeutic amount that a person benefits from those. I remember what it was now. There was something else. So, the 3-liter vessel is not maybe the most practical thing that a person's going to do. You're not going to, haul around a big giant urn full of water or something like that. So what I'll say to a patient is, okay, so you've got your, 3-liter vessel with a quarter of a teaspoon of salt in the whole mix. Well, then pragmatically maybe fill up 3 1-liter water bottles, take your quarter teaspoon of salt, put about 1/3 of that quarter teaspoon into each individual liter, and then bring those around with you for the day and drink that water. So anyways, that's the one little practical tip that I guess I'm putting out there as well. So anyways, that's the saltwater protocol in a nutshell. So I hope that this information was useful. Thank you to the person who asked the question in the first place. If anybody has any comments or questions on this topic or anything else, please post in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer as soon as I can.